Welcome to the Brie Pod. I'm here with Kylie Woods, substance abuse and prevention counselor for middle school and high school students. Hi, Kylie.
Hi.
I'm so happy to have you here today, especially with you not only being my best friend's sister and also a best friend, but also the work that you have done in your professional career. So I want you to share with us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I kind of worked in like all aspects of I guess my area of expertise. I started out doing an internship working with offenders re-entering back into the community. And then I started working with victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse, adults and children. And after that, I got into care management, where I was helping individuals who are suffering from chronic health conditions as well as mental health conditions. And now I am working with students, middle school, high school students, focusing on substance abuse prevention and crisis.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. So you know a lot about this subject.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's perfect because, as you know, this is the series for domestic violence awareness. Um, and today I want you to help us learn more about what is a safety plan and why is it so important to have?
Okay. So a safety plan, I mean, it sounds pretty self-explanatory. There is kind of a lot to it, but it's important to have, I would say, even in situations that may not seem that severe, just to kind of have a pre-plan set in place in case it does get to that point where you do need to make an exit safely. Um, but basically, it's just a bunch of action plans put in place for you to kind of be prepared in case that moment does arise. Um, so, kind of going through uh, each part of what you would need in order to make a safe exit. So, knowing where you can go for help, having a list of important phone numbers, such as, family members, close friends, police, domestic violence hotlines, and hospitals local to you. Planning out, if you do have children, making a plan with them as well. So keeping them in the loop so they're well aware of it as well. Um, Also, it's good to have a spare set of keys, either for your vehicle, your house, um, having a plan potentially with someone close by. So if you do have a neighbor that lives close by or a friend or family member, kind of keeping them in the loop as well with the plan. So, for example, something happened, you called or texted a code word, and that's the word for, okay, I'm enacting a safety plan. I'm coming over with the kids. So they know what's happening. So if they need to call 911 for you, they can do that as well. But just kind of getting all of your ducks in a row, basically, in case you are in a dangerous situation and you need to remove yourself safely, so everybody is prepared and on the same page. Um, oh, and as well as having all of your important information and documentation in a safe spot, or giving it to someone else to hold on to for you, like your driver's license, birth certificate, social security card, um, things like that, debit card, those types of things.
Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to ask as well regarding a safety plan. So, how do you get one?
So actually, there is a website where you can actually create your own online, and you can actually send it to someone that is aware that you're building a safety plan. So let's say a good friend of yours, you can build it online and then send it to them like through an email so they have it, and then you also have a copy of it. But there's also a way that it can delete itself so it protects you in case the abuser accesses your computer, your phone, so they're not able to obtain a copy of that or view it. But it's through the National Domestic Violence Hotline website, and it's just called the hotline.org. Um, and there's a link there to create your own safety plan.
Perfect. And I do want to ask, you mentioned how, they could send it to like someone, um, who is like that ideal person that you should send your safety plan to?
I would say whoever you feel you can trust the most to keep it uh, to themselves. Obviously, you don't want to trust somebody who you think may potentially let the abuser know, because that's putting you in a lot more danger. But obviously, like if there's a really good friend that you trust that you know is going to be willing to help you, or like I said, a family member, um, even like a potential like school official, if you're close with somebody in that area, or a hospital or whatever, just somebody that you know and trust that you know would be willing to help you if that situation does arise, and is not going to actually potentially put you in more danger by releasing that information.
Thank you for sharing that because I think that's super important. And it just actually made me think too. So prior, you also said that if they have children, letting them know. How much information should you give a child just in case your partner, or whoever is the abuser gets that information from your child? How much should you give?
So I definitely wouldn't tell them obviously everything. I would just kind of, depending on the age too, it's, I guess it kind of depends on the age of the children, but I would just say, if we feel like we're in danger, these are the steps that we're going to take, and kind of follow my lead, but let them know like, hey, we're going to go to so and so's house. If this happens, this is um, our emergency word or whatever, our code word. That means you go next door to Susie's house and tell her to call 911. Or we go, you go to a safe location to the neighbors or a friend's house and call this person or whatever. Just like that much information, but nothing more. So as far as like all the details that go into it, obviously you don't need to share that with them, but just kind of like, hey, if I say this word, that means go next door to the neighbor's house and call 911, or go there and tell them this is happening. And so then they know what to do from there. So like if they already have an agreement with this person, they know the safety plan, they know what steps to take without getting them too involved to where they feel pressure, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate you sharing that as well. Well,
Yeah.
all of it really, because, I feel like in situations like this, it's hard to know what the right steps are, where to go, because it's just like, okay, we're going to leave now. So how do we go about that? So every detail absolutely
Mhm.
matters.
Yeah,
Um,
it's very overwhelming, and I think that the obviously the best time, and in the hopes that the other person is someone who is out working every day, obviously it would be when they're not there, but obviously incidents typically happen when they are home. So if it's something to where a situation happened the night before, they're in danger but not to where they're fearing for their life, and they can make a safe exit when they're gone to work. That's one way. But if it's like right in the moment, that's when you would say, okay, you look at one of the kids, you say the code word, they go do what they need to do, and then things rolling that way. Um, but yeah, it can be very tricky, especially depending on the situation and the level of severity and the level of danger that you're in. So it just kind of depends.
Now, are there resources? So let's say someone is like, I filled out my safety plan, but I still feel like I need, help or kind of like that resource to help you out with that. Are there resources like that out there?
Absolutely. I actually used to work for Victims Assistance Center in Jefferson County. Um, so basically, what we did was we did refrain from orders stay away orders of protection. We did custody mods and custody orders for people who are victims of domestic violence. And I believe there are agencies like that in most, cities and areas. But definitely your local family court is a good place to go. If you don't have a local agency that you're aware of, like a victims assistance center, you can file an order of protection through family court. You can also file it through criminal court. So if there was a situation where the police were involved, it's all documented, the perpetrator was arrested, you press charges, criminal court can then file the stay away order of protection for you. And I know, like in New York State, if the person were to violate the stay away order of protection, they would be taken in and brought to jail for violating the order. So it's definitely a good thing to look into if you feel like you do need an order of protection. Also, getting set up with therapy is also a good resource to look into. Knowing where your local Department of Social Services is. So like if it was a situation where they kicked you and your kids out on the street, the way that it worked here is you go to the local hospital, let them know you are in a domestic violence situation or homeless situation. They would set you up typically in a motel or a hotel until they're able to find you housing. And they also have like safety shelters they can set you up in temporarily and things like that. And when you're working with those types of places, they are connected to all the local resources. So then they can help you if you don't already have an order of protection or housing or temporary assistance or, food and things like that. They can set you up with all of that as well.
Perfect. That is really good to know. Because I don't feel like sometimes I feel like this information is there, but it's not
Public.
necessarily talked about enough.
Yeah, it's not like super public knowledge, unfortunately, but it should be.
Yeah, right? Oh, I did want to ask you, so a lot of times in these events of domestic violence, you have partners that may, or whoever the abuser is, that may take your phone or check your phone constantly, or your email, your Facebook. What advice would you give them to still have communication, but, you know,
Be
not
safe.
be found out? Yeah.
Okay. So part of that can go back to the safety plan. So, for example, uh, if you do get free time to speak to the person that you're sharing your safety plan with, develop your own code language if you have to. You know what I mean? Say if I say orange, that means I'm in danger. I need to get out of the house immediately. Or if I say blue, that means cops are on their way. Come get the kids, type of thing. But it is good if you can pull it off to have a burner phone, like a track phone or something. Keep it charged and turn it off. But then if you absolutely need it, make sure you hide it in a good spot where you can get to it easily, but it's also not going to be discovered potentially, which sounds really tricky, obviously. So let's say the person that you're with is not somebody that's going to be cooking and going to the kitchen. You could put it in, under like where the cooking utensils are, or female products, or things like that, to where they're definitely not going to be going through those things. They're probably not going to find them, but things like your purse or a suitcase or your nightstand, like they're going to look through those places. Those are the first places they're probably going to look. If you have like a secret compartment in your car that they're not aware of, that's a great place to keep it. If you have a vehicle, obviously, but yeah. And also if that's your only phone, is like, say you have a smartphone, delete messages if you need to. So if you're communicating with like a close friend or your parent or whatever, and you're letting them know the situation, you don't want the other person to see it delete the conversation after the conversation is done, so that if they do go through your phone, they're not seeing what you said, potentially putting you in more danger, if that makes sense.
That absolutely makes sense. And it actually made me think of how Facebook has that hiding feature if you pull it up, and I think it
Yes.
hides it, and then you can X out of it and everything is gone.
Like the incognito
Yeah,
messaging type thing. Yeah. That would be a
yeah.
good tool to use for that purpose, specifically, like let the other person know, hey, this is the type of communication we need to use moving forward. And then that way you're never going to run the risk of them finding it because it will be gone. And then you keep yourself a little more safe, and children as well if they're involved, and even the other people that you're communicating with. So let's say they did find a conversation and they go after the person that you're communicating with to try to get information out of them, like that could happen. So it kind of is good to protect both people in that situation as well. Um, but yeah, that's definitely a really good idea. Um, let me see, there was another resource here. Like Google Voice or Skype was another thing that I had found on the internet to use. So you could like send a quick message, and I don't know if it deletes once you send it. That's always an idea.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that as well. It's just intriguing how many like things are out there that you don't realize are out there. So all of these are so beneficial and helpful, especially if someone may be in this situation right now thinking about getting out.
Mhm.
Um, and actually, on that note, what advice would you give someone right now that's on the fence, that's like listening to this episode and saying, I should get help. I don't know. Like, what advice would you give them?
Okay, so I mean, obviously, I guess it depends on the situation as well, but I feel like if you are constantly debating and questioning your situation, or you feel more unease than you do comfortable, um, you feel like there's constant tension, stress, uh, in the situation that you're in, I would say start now. Start making your safety plan now, just in case. Like things can change at the drop of a hat, and it's better to be prepared than to not be prepared. But I wouldn't hang on to a person or situation if it's not good for you, it's not beneficial to you, and it's putting you potentially in danger. Be, get to know your local resources. Um, Start making a plan with like friends or family or a trusted contact, and just have everything in place so that way if you do decide to make your exit, you know that you have everything set up, and you're a lot less likely to stay. Because I think a lot of people, the problem is they feel stuck. They feel like, oh my gosh, there's no way out. Like we share finances, I'm dependent on them for certain things. I cannot do it on my own, things like that. And that's where the social services aspect and the hospital comes into play, because there is a way out and there are other options. They may not be the prettiest options, but they're options. So as far as, like I said, the homeless shelter, temporarily, a hotel, setting you up in an apartment, it's those are all temporary situations. It's not a permanent thing, but it's a good start to start a new life and get out of that situation before it turns into something where you feel terrified to leave. So kind of nipping it in the bud before it progresses to the point where you feel like there is no escape.
That makes sense. And I love that you say to get the safety plan anyway, because even if you don't end up using it or you do use it, at least it's there. At least something is put into place.
Yeah, I feel like it's important, honestly, as crazy as it sounds, for everybody to have some sort of safety plan, even if it's just in your head, because some people are really, really good at, you know, putting on this persona and this, um, type of these type of characteristics, personalities, whatever, and then their true colors slowly come out, and it's shocking at first. You're like, whoa, like where did this come from? This is not the person that I started a relationship with. And you kind of make excuses, and that's part of the cycle of abuse, right? Like well, they were just angry, like it's fine, it won't happen again, type of thing. Uh, and then it slowly progresses and either gets worse or you start internalizing it and it's affecting you. It's affecting your mental health, your physical health, your relationships with your family and friends. I mean, those are all telltale signs that you probably should definitely have a safety plan in place and probably not continue with the relationship if it's not beneficial to you in any way.
Yeah, that I think that makes sense as well. Even if, because you're right, you don't always know how that person's going to be. Um, so I appreciate it's like that. I was gonna say prenup, but that's not what
Oh my
it's like
goodness.
having, I
Like a
meant to,
pre-safety plan.
yeah, like a like, just being safe. Ignore that one part. But, just it's just being conscientious of your environment, keeping
Yeah.
yourself safe.
Yes. Yep.
Um, Another question I had is, so a lot of times people that are in these abusive relationships do have, I think their worry is being judged. But what
Right.
advice could you give on I guess it's a two-part question. One
Mhm.
being the feeling of judgment, and then the
Okay.
second question being the advice to that bystander, that could be that friend, that mom, that, whoever in their life, the supporter, how, like, so the advice to both people.
Okay. So I think advice to the person that's in the actual situation themselves, I would say, as difficult as it is, don't be concerned or worried about being judged, because at the end of the day, your life and your happiness is the most important thing. People are going to judge you regardless of what you do, regardless of whether you're in that type of situation or any situation. People are always going to have their opinions and make judgments regardless. So it's better to make a positive choice and make sure that you're happy and safe and everyone in your family is happy and safe, as opposed to just staying in that situation to feel like you're avoiding that judgment. And I feel like for the person that they're confiding in or looking to for advice, like my advice to them would be, do not be judgmental. Like, if anything, be a good listening ear and be like just there to comfort and support. Because if you're the type of person that's going to judge them after they already feel like they're being judged, I can tell you what's going to happen. They're going to stop talking. They're going to stop telling you things, and they're going to stay in that relationship longer because they're going to feel like they don't have anybody else. And they're going to feel like they are stuck because the one person they look to for help is judging them when they already feel down and being judged. So I guess that would be my advice.
Thank you. I think that is so true. Like, you need to have some form of support, and you're right. If you don't feel supported, you are not going to share
Mm-hmm.
anything else. And I know, I feel like, from being on both sides of survivor slash bystander, I feel like it's important to say, like, sometimes the person that you want to get out of the situation is not going to do it on your timing, and that's
Mm-mm.
okay. It doesn't have to be on your timing.
Right.
And that's the whole part of support. And it's hard. I know it's hard to watch someone and be like, hey, why can't you get out? But it has to be in their time. And by you supporting and loving them, and if you, I mean, you may be their safety plan person, that they go to for that help. So it's so important to just love them. So I just, to add on to what you were saying.
Absolutely. And I feel like what happens is, when you're on the outside, obviously for everybody, it's so much easier to be like, oh my gosh, just leave. It's so simple, just leave. But it's like people do not understand when you're in this situation, you cannot really truly see it for what it is 9 times out of 10. And it's so much harder to get out when you're in the middle of it, and to even for the person to even reach out for help or to even discuss that there's a problem is hard enough. So, you know, I would say to the person that they're reaching out to, definitely don't, like you said, feel like, or make them feel like they're forced to leave the situation, or tell them, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like, that is a really good way to make them feel like they have to stay in that situation. Um, and what people don't realize is 9 times out of 10, the abuser will kind of solidify that for them, and they will tell them, like, I'm the only person that cares about you. I'm always here for you. And they may not realize that's happening due to control and isolation. But when you
Yes.
say it over and over again, it becomes their reality. So they start thinking that, okay, they're right. They are the only person that's there for me. Even if it's not great, they're still here. So it's a very tricky situation to navigate.
Yeah, it really is. And I think um what I guess like from an outsider looking in, what they don't realize too is sometimes the abuser can feel that pull away from them. They may not know full blown that you have you've looked into a safety plan, you've looked into maybe a restraining order,
Mhm.
but sometimes they can sense that you're going to probably leave. And I feel like that's when they really lay on the Mac of like, it's that whole honeymoon stage again. All of a sudden, they're like for 2 weeks, they're really sweet and
Love
kind.
bombing.
Yeah, love, thank you, love bombing.
Yes. Yep. They can definitely tell when you start acting differently. You're not doing the same things for them every day, or you're not super excited to see them when they walk in the door, greeting them, and going out of your way, going above and beyond. Uh, they absolutely can sense that, and they're thinking, okay, I need to step up my game because they're contemplating leaving. We can't let that happen. So here comes the love bombing. Here comes the maybe the gifts or the open-ended promises or whatever it's going to take. They know what works for you, and they know what buttons to push, and they will do whatever they have to do to keep you in that situation. So it's good to kind of be aware of that, and like even do your own research. I mean, sometimes people have absolutely no idea, like there is more than just physical abuse.
Yes.
um all different types, actually. Control is one of, I think, the biggest ones that people don't realize is actually a form of abuse. um that's huge. So kind of like the isolation, isolating you from friends and family, trying to control what you wear, what you say, how you act in public, who you hang out with, what you do, what your interests are, even what you eat. I mean, those are all kind of forms of abuse. People don't really consider that to be abuse. And isolation is a big one. I think that abusers love to use control and isolation because what that does is it just strengthens their power. If they're able to keep you away from the people that are important to you, that have the ability to bring light to the situation and strength and knowledge and empowerment, they will cut those people off first. They'll be the first to go. They do not want them putting thoughts in your head that will give them the strength to leave. They will make sure they sever those relationships first.
Yes, that's so true. And you're so right on like the different forms of abuse. I think a lot of people just go straight to the physical form, but
Mhm.
the biggest one I feel like at the top of the tier is power and control.
Mhm.
And then it goes down in cycles to, a lot of people forget that, there's the abuse of controlling your finances,
Yes.
sexual abuse,
Mhm.
um, psychological, mental,
Yes.
So there's just so much, and it's not. We've said this in a couple of the series, and probably I've repeated some information, but I think it's just so important to remind everyone that it's not just partners; it could be family members. Like this domestic violence awareness has so much behind it. There's so many things. And the terminology, such like we brought up today, as love bombing. And these are terms that if you have time to look up as well, which we have in different episodes too, but like reactive abuse and trauma bonding.
Yes.
There's just so many things I feel like are out there that they don't realize that is happening. And I did want to add to a question for you. When we talk about like isolation and everything, let's talk about their public appearance, because some people think, oh, isolated meaning, you're only in your house, you never get let out.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the public, aspect, because with abusers, regardless partnership, whoever they are to you, they are a different person with the public.
Mhm. They sure are. Yes. Yes. They are I mean, I won't speak for everybody, but just I'd say the general I don't even want to say standard, but I would say the typical uh abuser for the most part is very charming, um, in public, um, very people pleasing. Um, they kind of go above and beyond and out of their way to make sure that no one would suspect that they would ever do something like that. No one would ever think that about them. And that makes it so much harder
Yeah.
for the victim to prove their point further, because they confide in someone and that person says, oh my gosh, they would never do that, they are like the nicest, sweetest person, like they don't have it in them to be that way, like I just cannot believe that. And then the people just don't believe you, and then that kind of validates the abuser even more, and also kind of makes you feel like, am I crazy, like am I making this up? Is this not really as bad as what I think it is? It's like, no, it's not. Don't discredit how you feel from what's going on. But yeah, the typical abuser will be very smooth and calculated and charismatic, in front of people, friends, family, public, at work, even. Like they might be very well liked at work and be like the go to person, guy or girl. Behind closed doors, they might be the complete opposite. Um, so it gets very interesting. So and it also proves that they are absolutely in control, right? So if they're able to control their actions and their words in public, that means they're able to control them behind closed doors. They choose not to. It's very interesting. So
Yes, definitely. And I feel like you bring up such good points, because I know with myself, with my abuser, we had worked together, went to school together, we lived together, and everybody around us is like, oh, this person is so sweet and nice. You would never do that, like you said.
yep.
And to the point when I did actually leave him, I remember the next day, I mean, because we still, like I said, we still had a lot of same places that we were at regardless. The next
Right.
day, he already had done his, I like to call it almost
Campaign.
PR. Yeah, campaign. No,
Oh.
no, that's good. Actually, that's perfect. Campaigning.
Yes.
He already had done campaigning, and
Hmm.
people were coming to me and were like, you should be ashamed of yourself, like of what you did to
Right.
this person.
Oh my God, like victimizing the victim, and he loved it. He loved every minute of it.
Yes. Oh, he did. And I feel like it's important to share this, too, because even though, the people around you may be fooled, and even
Right?
though you may feel isolated, please know that from the survivor's perspective, you are like your thoughts and your feelings are valid.
Absolutely.
What you're seeing is true,
Hmm.
period. No ands,
Absolutely.
ifs, or buts. And trust your gut because
Yes.
at the end of the day, no one can take away that feeling something is wrong. And the
Yes.
difference between, your anxiety maybe over here versus something's wrong.
Right. Right. And I've
What's
always
that?
thought, especially at this point in my life, if you have to ask, you already know the answer. Do you know what I mean? Like how some people are like, am I making the right decision? Is this relationship right for me? Is this a safe situation? Should I stay? What should I do? I feel like you already know the answer internally, like in your gut's like, this is not a good situation. Girl, run, or boy, run, whatever.
Yeah.
Like you already know, you're looking for validation. The problem is if the person that you're with, the abuser, is that go-to charismatic, smooth person, you're not going to get that validation outside of the relationship.
Absolutely.
You're going to get the um oh my gosh, I feel like you're reading too much into this. Oh, I think you're overthinking this. Oh my gosh, there's no way. They're not that person. They would never do that. No, absolutely not. You just need to give them another chance. They're great. They're a sweet person. And you're going to once again question yourself. And so, like you said, you go with your gut. If you feel like deep down something is not right, something is wrong, or you don't feel safe, go. It is not worth it. It is not worth your time. Like, life is so short. Like, it is just not worth being miserable or stressed or scared. It's not worth it. Trust me, it's not.
Exactly. And on top of that too, you're gaslighting yourself if you
Yes.
are trying to say like, no, maybe they're right. It's like, no, your reality is true. What you're seeing is happening. And if you can't hear that from others and you don't have those people with you, you know, we are telling you that yes, this is what you are feeling and thinking and seeing is valid and true.
Hmm. And that's what I think is it makes it so much harder. Like I said, when the person goes out of their way to impress the people that are closest and most important to you to kind of, smooth them over or win them over. And those are the people that you're obviously going to go to for guidance and support. And those people are like, oh my gosh, no way. Like you said, you're going to gaslight yourself and be like, wow, like I'm wrong. Maybe everything's great. Um, and typically, for people that do the isolation control manipulation, they already are gaslighting you. So you get that at home and then you're getting that externally. You're not going to know which end is up most of the time. Like all you have is that internal gut instinct, and that's the one you have to go off of.
Yeah. That's very true. And what I love that you had shared earlier too is that if you don't have that support system and you don't have those people to be able to turn to, there are even though you're like, oh, I don't know about a stranger, there are people outside of that are they have been trained
Yes.
to be able to discuss with you these you know what you're feeling and validating that for you.
Mhm.
So definitely reach out.
Yes. Yes. I think that honest to God was probably the most rewarding job I ever had was working for a victim's assistant because although at sometimes it was terrifying not knowing how the situation was going to end up like in court, um like having that person come back and be like, thank you so much for being that person to give me the strength and support that I needed, that I wasn't getting, to finally make the decision to leave and get the order of protection and make sure, me and my children, or just me alone, are safe, and that there is a way out, there are options. Like that was honestly the most rewarding job I think I've ever had. And knowing that people, like letting people know that there is a second chance, like to start over and it's okay to start over, um, was pretty amazing.
And I love that you did that for people. I think that's such a powerful and beautiful thing, and so like amazing because we need people like you. So thank you
No.
for doing that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's so true. And I think that, like you said, there's not really like, it's not super public knowledge that there are those resources out there that can help people that, like you said, don't necessarily have those close connections. Like, you know, there's a lot of people that like they don't have family that's close by or any family left at all, or they don't have a super close knit friend group. So like the victims assistance centers, domestic violence centers, the shelters, Department of Social Services, the hospitals, social workers, therapists, like all those resources are so helpful in those situations, to try to give you the strength that you need to remove yourself from those situations.
Definitely. And I do want to ask before you go, I know that locally in each area there are specifically these services that you can reach out to. What and even though we have touched base on it, I guess in particular, what could they do a Google search on to find that local like what terminology would they use to find that local you know place to get this help?
So I would say, depending on the situation, obviously, the local family courts would be one. Um, any type of domestic violence center, uh, victims assistance center, um, like I said, Department of Social Services, um, any type of behavioral health services, um, even like I said, local hospitals. They have great connections and working relationships with people in the community. Um, and the website I mentioned earlier, the hotline.org, has so many great resources on there. It also has a live chat that's available for people. It has a texting app, um, a number that you can text and have people for crisis response to respond, and then a 1-800 number as well.
Thank you. And I will definitely add some of these links at the bottom of this episode as well. Just one quick question, just to give that extra like safety feeling. When someone does reach out, their case and anything that they share, it can be anonymous, correct?
Yes. Yes.
But I just want to make sure that was said, just so that they know that, like even if, let's say, you're not 100% sure that you want to leave, but you're thinking about it and you just want to talk, just
Mhm.
know that it'll be anonymous. Not the whole world will not know you went in
Right.
there.
Yes. And I think that the texting app, the live chat, and the 1-800 number is a good way to do that because they're all trained professionals, that you can talk to. And like I said, you don't have to disclose, you know, who you are. It's just kind of there for information purposes and support. So I think that's definitely a good tool to use, even if you're contemplating it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so happy that you were able to join us and give your perspective, especially with the background that you have. It's so important and empowering. You also brought in a lot of things that I feel is not really, in the public eye. So thank you so much for that too. Um, with that being said, at the end of our each episode, I always do an affirmation. Um, but I think for this one in particular, I think the main affirmation that we said a couple of times that I would leave everyone with is that your feelings and your thoughts are true and validated. I feel that that is the affirmation that must be left here today. So thank you again, Kylie, for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
And with that, you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and we are proud of you. Until next time on the Brie Pod. Bye.